then go ahead and pull your mic a little closer to you there. Can you hear everything in your headset?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Sharing everything in?
Yeah, as soon as I can find it.
Get going here.
It's not exactly wanting to load for me, so.
Well, it's working here. You want me to share it?
Yeah.
All right. Gotcha. Bumped out here. All right, I got everybody.
All right.
All righty. Good? Got yourself? All right, guys, we'll go ahead and get started. This is going to be episode 9 with Beijieng Gratz, hometown guy that we all know. First off, we want to say thanks to the Hoppy Gnome downtown Fort Wayne for having us out today. If you guys are looking for any good beer, fantastic food, and a fun place to just come hang out, they're at the corner of Clinton and Barry. Come on down, tell them that we sent you. You might get some smiles and everything else, maybe a discount. We'll see. Also, we want to talk about Fan Cave Sports. They are a sponsor of ours. This week only, the first 10 people to call in are getting $7 front row tickets to the upper level for a Comets opening night. We'll go ahead and post their information here in about an hour and a half, 2 hours on our Facebook page and Twitter. So just get on there, give Nate Long a call, tell him that we sent you, and you'll get cheap tickets for opening night. The other thing we'll talk about is August 10th, we're doing a Comets alumni party at Rudy's Shop, which is just a few blocks from where we are now, downtown by Parkview Field. We're doing huge giveaways that night. We're going to do a VIP package to Grand Rapids Griffins where you get to go up and spend a weekend, hotel accommodations, all that good stuff, glass tickets. So
Must be present to win.
Yep. If you're not there, you're not getting it, plain and simple. So
we're going to be doing a big silent auction for the Bob Chase's penny pitch.
Yeah. So come on out, see all your old favorites. We got a few confirmed: Robbie Irons,
Colin
Chin, Brandon Warner. Working on several others. I know Benny and Olivier Legault are planning on being out there with some of the guys from this year's team.
We'll have John Finch from the Spacemen, Kaylee Schrock, maybe even get some of the players out there.
Yep. So it'll be a fun night. 5 p.m. We'll start the podcast show 6:30. There's going to be food from Full Circle Barbecue and Grill. So we will hopefully see you all there, rain or shine. We'll be indoors if it's raining, but please pray for us that it's not.
We'll have some music going too, aren't we?
Yeah, we'll have music going, everything like that. Cigars, if you guys are cigar smokers. If you're not, if it's outdoors, there won't be any worry about it.
Rocky Patel's doing an event there that night.
Yep.
So
we even have a cigar event scheduled for it too, as well, on top of everything. So it's going to be a fun day. We recommend everybody come out and say hi to all the old boys. So
I'm sure they want to see us as much as we want to see them.
Yeah.
It's got to be nice to know that you're not forgotten.
So, all right. We'll do some more sponsor plugs later. So before that, we'll go ahead and get into it with Brian. Brian, thanks for coming on the show. I know your schedule's crazy busy right now before you head over. So what we want to talk about, everybody was saying they want to know the history of Brian. Like, where'd you start out? And you're a hometown kid, all that. So how did hockey become part of life?
Well, it was my mom and my dad, kind of got me on the ice there at the Glenbrook Mall back when we had the rink right in the mall. And, mom made sure that I got to experience a lot of different sports. And they both kind of gave me every opportunity to try anything that kind of struck a chord, and hockey did. And, started working at McMillan and playing there. And, I remember when I was 7 years old, I go and I loved goalie, and I had just started, and I try out as a mite and for the travel team, and the team manager told my dad, hey, you might want to think about switching Brian to soccer because there's no way he's ever going to play hockey as a goaltender. So my dad took that as a challenge, and my parents made some sacrifices, got me working with Chris Wright, a former goaltender here for the Comets, and whipped me into shape. Beat the snot out of me quite a bit on the ice from about 8 years old to 16. And, I was fortunate enough to move from Fort Wayne. I ended up playing AAA hockey at Indianapolis, Kalamazoo, Toledo. And, at about 14, 15 years old, came back and I played some high school hockey here in Fort Wayne for the Northside Redskins with Gary Graham. And, we were the worst team in the city, and somehow we won our last 7 games of the year, which resulted in a state championship. So
there you go.
It was a lot of fun, and kind of moved forward into going to prep school, college, things like that.
So you went to right out of high school. Did you go to Penn State then?
So after my year at Northside in '97, I was a sophomore. I went to a prep school in Chicago, which was Lake Forest Academy, which was a tremendous experience for me. Living away from home for the first time. I know my mom wasn't the most excited about it, but it was definitely a good maturing experience, kind of going there and growing physically and academically and all that. And I really wanted to play junior hockey, but my parents wanted me to really focus on getting that education, and I had a lot of opportunities to potentially go play Division III college hockey, walk on to a few as a preferred walk on, Notre Dame, Army, Air Force, things like that. And I took a visit to Penn State. At the time, they were a club hockey team, but the support they had a Nike sponsorship. They had 2,500 fans a game, and they were kind of the talk of the campus. So I went there, and one of the Division III schools who was recruiting me was playing them at Penn State, and Penn State beat them 12-1. So I said, I think this is the spot for me. So, I graduate prep school. I'm 17 years old, enrolling into summer courses at Penn State. Pretty young, a little immature, trying to get my footing. And, it was a bit of a journey going through Penn State there at first, but let me tell you, I had a great time doing it. So it was a lot of fun. I was there for 5 years, redshirted my first year, and, battled to try and find my footing in the goalie rotation. I was fortunate to be a part of 4 national championships with Penn State
That's
at
awesome.
the ACHA level. Stayed for the thumb ring. And we ended up losing in the national championship game, unfortunately. The last championship game, which I was not starting, and I came in halfway, and we ended up coming back from a 5-1 deficit, losing 5-4. So that was one that kind of sticks with you for a long time. But I had 2 assists there in the third period, so it gave us a chance to come back.
That's pretty awesome. You don't hear that very often.
I loved watching Martin Brodeur, Eddie Belfort growing up, and I was an absolute psychopath as a goaltender growing up. So when I was 13, 14, 15 years old, I was top 2 or 3 on my team in penalty minutes. So I did not care. Anybody came close to me, I would 2-hand them. I would fight every single game. I was absolutely insane. And when I went to prep school is when I had to rein it in. So apparently it's frowned upon in academia and at those type of schools. So I had to kind of button it up a little bit, but it definitely helped me as I moved along. But still got a little ornery as I grew up and through college and into some minor pro as well.
I'm not the only one, at least.
Well, the way I understand it, goalies are a little off the rocker to begin with.
Well, I know I mentioned this to you before, but the goalies are the smartest guys on the ice, all right? Hockey players get dumber from the net out, all right? So goalies tend to gravitate to the defensemen because at least they aren't the dumbest guys out there. As a hockey coach, I can fully attest to this being true because, most of these right wingers who think that they're going to be firing shots coming off the half wall, well, they never come back and protect you. They never come back and help in their own end. But it's funny, that dynamic. One of the guys who has been a lifelong friend to me was Gary Graham, and he was a defenseman for me when we played for Northside, and a guy that We stayed close together after that year, and kind of look at us now where we're going.
Yeah, you guys have.
I didn't realize that you guys were the same age.
He's a little older than me, so I was a sophomore in high school, and he was a senior. Okay. So, and I was, I guess, a younger sophomore. Graduated high school at 17. So, at 15, he was 18, almost 19. And, but it was, that team was actually pretty unique. We had Gary Graham, some of the other guys on the team. We had Andy Long. Yeah. And we had a guy by the name of Eric Wallenstein, who was Bob Chase's grandson. So
I knew that name.
We had a very, very special team. It was coached by Primo brothers. So Rod and Rich, and it was a lot of fun. Got my ass kicked every single game of the season, probably seeing 50, 60 shots. I got thrown out of 2 games.
Been there.
I tried charging back on the ice after one and had a security officer try and put handcuffs on me. And that was an experience that I was fortunate to get out of, because my dad was there, and his brother, my Uncle Tom, who was one of the most decorated police officers for the Allen County Sheriff's Department. So kind of got me out of trouble there.
Nice. So you did your 5 years with Penn State, then you went on to professional hockey?
Yeah, so we did, when I finished up with Penn State in 2004, really, I was looking at what the next step was going to be. It was graduating with degrees in finance and economics. I had done internship with Merrill Lynch, and I really thought that was going to be the path that I was going to take. Absolutely hated my internship, and I probably spent more time hiding in the file closet, just reorganizing that, as opposed to trying to learn something. But I got a call probably 2 weeks after our season ended there with Penn State to go join Johnstown Chiefs. Yeah, and it was awesome. I sign on with them. I go, I drive an hour and a half to meet them in Johnstown. We do a couple practices, and I have no idea what the schedule is. I have no idea what's going on. I'm just trying not to embarrass myself. And the guy's like, yeah, we got a road trip. I'm like, okay, that's great. Where are we going? Atlantic City. I'm like, oh, this is the best. First trip out of the gate, we're going to AC, and as hockey players will, they love playing cards. And, we get on the bus, and I won like 3 different guys per diem. So like, I'm sitting there, I got like $300 in my pocket. I'm like, this is the pro lifestyle. This is awesome. We get to Atlantic City. I'm like, I love rolling the dice. I'm going to go play some craps. I lost every penny I had in the first 5 minutes. And I'm like, this was a dumb idea.
This is the pro lifestyle.
I've been there. Yeah. I'm sure we all have.
Absolutely. Yeah. But it was neat. So getting to do that, spending a couple weeks with them, trying to juggle finishing up school and playing with them, and kind of seeing what was going to happen. I talked with the coach. I got an opportunity to go to a training camp, actually with Quad City in the old U-Haul there. And it was the year of the NHL lockout. And at the time, really didn't understand the dynamics and pro hockey. I'm just like, I'm excited to go. I'm going to go get this tryout and show up there. I'm there a week early. I skate, do all this stuff, end up having a tremendous camp. I fought a tough guy by the name of OJ Herr in training camp, who was 6'6", and he was absolutely going to ragdoll me. And I just happened to catch a lucky one, didn't phase him one bit. And as soon as I saw that, I turtled, and that guy dragged me around the ice by the belt of my pants. And I just grabbed onto his legs, and I was laughing. So it was in practice. It was awesome. But with the way pro is and that lockout year, they ended up getting guys sent down to them. Yep. And, I really didn't have much of a plan. And so I'm in Quad City, just got released, make that 6-hour drive back here, go out, have a few pops with my cousin Stacy here in town and her friends. And I get a call at 7 a.m. from the Reading Royals to be there the very next day for their training camp. So hop in the car, drive out to Reading, get there at 1 a.m, hit the hotel, get up, and I get another opportunity that I really didn't think was going to happen. So from there, I ended up staying there for about a month or so. And, it was a really good introduction, but there's contract guys, what are you going to do? Where are you going to be? And so I was kind of left in limbo once I was released there. And it's about Christmas time. I'm like, is this ever going to happen for me? Am I going to find a spot? And, I was fortunate. I got a call from Huntsville in the Southern Professional League, and go down there. And, it was definitely very different than what I had expected.
Oh, yeah.
And, not in a bad way. I mean, back then, I think there was only like 5 or 6 teams. And, we go there, and we have a road trip. And I remember I had a week of practice. We had a really good goalie. Carmichael was his name, in front of us. And, so we go, and I think we played, I can't remember, Fayetteville was, I can't remember the first game, but then we played in Jacksonville on New Year's Eve, right? So nice. I'm the backup there, and the coach tells the team before the game, hey guys, we won the first game. If we win this one, there's no curfew. And we had a game the next day in Macon, Georgia at 5 p.m. Well, the boys really tuned it up. They won. After that, boys are all going out. Before everybody left the rink, coach says, hey, you're starting tomorrow, Gratz, so keep yourself under control. I'm like, my first pro start is after everybody's going out. So I didn't really do much. And, I'm sitting there, and it's like 6 a.m. You're watching guys get dropped off by cabs at the bus to drive up to Macon. And, my first pro start, I get in there, obviously some nerves, and the boys just our locker room. If you would have lit a match, we would have caught on fire. So we go out there. I get absolutely shelled in the first period, and I think we were down like 2 or 3-0. And after that, I kind of got myself together, played pretty good game, ended up losing 3-0, but it was a lot of fun. And after that, I got a call from David Franke to come up here and join the Comets. So had that one start, came up here, and that's where I got a chance to work with Kevin St. Pierre. I was playing with Chalker, Druin, an awesome team, awesome group of guys. And Frenchie was a guy that really kind of helped shape my game as a pro. I really looked up to him, and I still stay in touch with him today. So the couple months I had there with Fort Wayne, right out of the gate there was one that I loved.
Awesome. So I'm familiar with the Southern League. I used to work for Pensacola. So
okay, yeah.
When Graham was down there working, and his first year was my first year working there, and I was like, we're both Fort Wayne guys and the same last name. That's so creepy.
Fun hockey down there.
Yeah, the Southern League is a different style.
Yeah.
Huntsville had a great following. Their rink was nasty to go
Unbelievable.
into.
I remember walking in there the first day, and like, wow, this is like,
it's really nice.
Didn't know what to think. It's 7,000 seat arena. Like, they were packing the place, and it was pretty cool. And after that short experience there, I didn't make my way back into the Southern Pro until I was a coach, which was a whole nother ball of wax. But and I'm sure we'll get to that. It was. I think it's a great development league, and it's turned into that. But it definitely had its beginnings with trying to be a little bit more rough and tumble, more of a WWE style of hockey.
A little bit.
Yeah.
We saw those days.
But I mean, after the Fort Wayne thing, I got a chance the following year to come back to do training camp with the Comets, made the team out of camp, and Frenchie ended up getting hurt, and they brought in somebody with some more experience. So, I kind of summarized most of my professional journey was more of an opportunity for me to kind of learn the game, because I really figured that I wanted to coach. That's what I wanted to get into, and I was using the opportunities to be a bit of a suitcase as a goaltender to see different coaching styles. And I had the opportunity to, when Chief was here, Pahalski, and, I backed up, a little bit for Steve Martinson when he was in Rockford. And the only advice he gave me as a coach when I told him that's what I wanted to do, he just said, Gratzy, make sure you got the horses, or else don't get in the race. And I never saw that guy put his skates on once to come on the ice for practice while I was there. So, but
Marty, you never saw him come on there?
No, I mean, I was there for a very short period of time, a couple of weeks, but I mean, he's a guy, he knows how to push the right buttons on his players. He knows how to recruit. I mean, when your championship batting average is almost 50%, you're doing something right. So kind of took that to heart when I got to the pro side of things.
So what made you come to the end of the the playing career? Just kind of a decision you made, or?
Yeah, I mean, hockey was very good to me. It wasn't great to my body, and it was kind of falling apart. And I think at this point in time, I've had 8 total knee surgeries. I've had neck surgery, ankle, like a total of 22 surgeries. So a lot of that has been after my playing career, kind of the stuff that has just kind of degenerated over time.
Residual effect.
But, it was kind of coming to an end. But actually my last year, I had said, hey, I want to get into coaching. So I went back to Reading. And I worked as a volunteer assistant under Carl Taylor, who's now the head coach for the Milwaukee Admirals.
Right.
And so when I say volunteer, it's 100% volunteer. There was no money at all. And I was living on our general manager's couch. His name was Gordon Kay, absolute awesome guy, kind of helped give me my first opportunity. So I did that for about 2 or 3 months. And it was right around Christmas time. I'm like, man, I got no money. I got to figure something out. I got an opportunity to go sign and play in Wheeling to kind of finish out that year in the 2006-2007 season. Signed with them, and I had a couple of pretty good games, good starts. And all of a sudden I get a phone call from McNamara, who was the general manager of the Grand Rapids Griffins.
Right.
And I was, he's like, hey, we need to call up a guy. We're up in Wilkes-Barre. We'd like you to come. And I said, hang on one second. Can I call you right back? I hung up with him, and I looked him up to make sure nobody was pranking me, because I'm like, this can't be the real guy. I ended up calling him back, and I ended up joining Grand Rapids. And kind of at that point, I was like, this is the top for me. This is what I wanted to do. I just wanted to get that opportunity to go to the American League and just kind of see what it was. It was quite it was a lot of fun. I meet him in Wilkes-Barre. Jimmy Howard was the starting goalie, and he was injured. So it was me and this guy, Stefan Liv, and I joined them on the road, and I was Jimmy Howard's roommate, and he was quite a good time. So we were in Wilkes, then we went to Albany, and then we had like 2 days off in Philadelphia during the NFL playoffs, and the Eagles had a home game. So we go out to a bar as a team. Kip Miller's there, Norton, all these guys. Erickson, big defense, was still playing for him.
Yeah.
All these guys are there running up a tab, and one of the guys says, hey, just so you know, the rookies are paying. And I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, I've been sitting here volunteer assistant for the whole year. I just get called money up. All I had was the per diem money, and it's like the bill was like $3,000, and which was pretty tame, but there was only 5 rookies there. I'm like, I am in some trouble. And Kip Miller leans over to me, and he's just like, hey, Gratz, I got you taken care of. Don't worry about it. Let's just have some fun, but you're in charge of Jimmy tonight. And so Jimmy Howard was enjoying himself, and so I had to kind of be his chaperone. He loses his wallet in the car and all this other stuff, but he was an awesome guy, excellent goaltender, but his injury allowed me to be there for a couple weeks and really kind of enjoy it. But after I'm up there, I find out I get traded from Wheeling to Utah while I'm up there. And I'm like, I should really have no value as a player. I'm a suitcase backup goaltender. So go to Utah, and I asked to be released just so I could get back closer to my wife and family, and end up signing on with Dayton and finish the year with Cincinnati. But it was when you're bouncing around that much, and you want to try and find a little bit of stability, but I also knew coaching was kind of going to be where I wanted to go, and I really achieved what I had set out to do, was kind of make it to a place that I don't think many people thought I could get to. So
cool. So I know we said earlier that there's some adventures in coaching to begin with.
Yes.
Besides the volunteer, maybe, but
so you went straight from playing into coaching, correct?
Yes.
Right.
So, at the time I was living, I went to Penn State. I was making my home at Penn State there in the off season. And I I got an opportunity. There was a startup league called the Mid-Atlantic Hockey League. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up interviewing. I signed on with them. Indiana, Pennsylvania is a small college town, about an hour and a half from Penn State. So I'm like, this is perfect. I go there, and there is absolutely nothing set up. We had no locker room, anything. So my dad and I actually built our team's locker room and inside this rink. And if it wasn't for him, this thing would not have gotten off the ground. So we built the locker room. And as the season's approaching, I'm recruiting my team, and I get a call from the league commissioner, and he says, Brian, I just want to let you know we weren't able to secure our ability to have foreign players because we didn't have enough teams and we couldn't affiliate with a higher level. So that wiped out 80% of my roster. I lost 80% of my Canadians 2 weeks before the season started. 2 weeks.
Wow.
So I'm, obviously I'm like, all right, we got to hit the phones. I re-recruited an entirely new team like 2 weeks before this whole thing started. Players are getting ready to show up. The owner had not set up housing for our guys. So I tabbed my mom, who gets anything done you set her to. She finds us an apartment housing, and she got somebody to sponsor the team to pay for it. And it wasn't the greatest area, but it was better than what they were going to give us, which was one 4-bedroom house for the entire team. Wow. So
that sounds like a Flint thing.
It maybe did. Yeah. So we get that. The guys get there. The jerseys arrive the same day as training camp starts, and this is very Mickey Mouse operation. But I ended up trying to, like, where I was targeting for the players, I was saying, hey, listen, this is an opportunity. We're in a great spot. We're 30 minutes from Johnstown, 2 hours from Reading. Like, Youngstown wasn't too far away, and I promised these guys I was going to get them called up. Just come, get us off the ground, and I'm going to help you get to where you want to go. Well, we didn't have a sales staff. We didn't have an athletic trainer. We didn't have an equipment manager. It was just me. We had 2 kids right out of college, and that was it, who were supposedly our front office. So along with my parents, I was out there taking tickets, tearing tickets, selling sponsorships. I was doing the team laundry, sharpening the skates, wrapping ankles, running practice, doing all this stuff, like from the get-go. And it was overwhelming, but it was one of those things where it's the best experience you can get is just kind of being thrown into the fire. And the one thing that ended up started happening was I wasn't getting paid, and we were like, something's going on, and we kind of get to figure out that this guy who started the league, and I won't mention his name, but it was this pyramid scheme. Like, all he did was set up a bunch of websites, sign a bunch of leases, and then he tried to put a value on these franchises to get people to buy them. And at one point, our team got bought. The guy came in, he saw the operation, dropped a puck during a game, and then he left and never came back. And so the players, like, occasionally, like, opposing teams would give us money to pay our guys to keep them there. And I was driving vans for us to go from, one from our rink to away games, because every time we got a bus, they wouldn't pay the bill. And then so we had to get another one. Eventually, we didn't have a bus. But it was crazy that year. We ended up, we lost our 5th game of the year, and then we won 26 straight games. And during that time period, from end of October to middle of February, I had 40 call-ups to the ECHL. I had to re-recruit a team again. I think we had like 50 different players, and all we did was keep winning. And it was a really kind of a special experience, but it was a tough one, And we're sitting here at 31-1, and it was kind of surreal. We get the call that the league was just going to cease all of a sudden. And, so it was kind of a tough pill to swallow. And then from there, didn't really know what was going to happen. All I know is I'm still owed quite a bit of money from there, but I don't hold my breath on ever seeing that. And
you can say you technically won a championship, right?
Oh, I did. Yeah, they put it on a website and everything, so it's legit.
That's kind of crazy. That it started off such a rocky situation, and you ended up losing one game.
Yeah, and it was and it wasn't a league where it was like putting an NHL team playing a junior team. Like all the teams were close. It was just, we had a goalie that, and Nick Niedert. And if you ever look him up on Hockey DB, it's the longest thing you'll ever see. But he was somebody that I used to train with in the summertime, and Nicky is he's still kicking around. He's still doing his thing and playing. And he was a tremendous asset to me. Him and I were just trying to figure everything out. He knew just about everybody at the single A level. So, we would lose a couple of guys to call up, and, if I couldn't find somebody, he could. So it was, what he helped me with and what we were able to do to kind of keep that group together was pretty special. And then, that season kind of concludes. Oh, before I do that, so the housing we had was this row of apartments. So it was like 6 apartments. And, one night it's just that there's an open field. There's a parking lot. There's a car dealership about 150 yards away, and then a field in between that, and then our apartments. I start getting text messages from my players like, "Coach, did you hear that?" And I'm like, "No, what are you talking about?" And I'm at one end of the apartments. Everybody else is over here. And they're like, "Coach, like we heard something outside." Next thing you know, you hear some things that sound like firecrackers. And we're like, "What is going on?" And
playing the game, were you?
No, it was literally, we saw 3 guys chase a guy out of the field into the parking lot in front of our apartments and shoot him. And we're I like as we saw these guys running across, like everybody's texting me. Like I called like the guy, like one of the players next to me, and I called one of my captains. I said, just everybody go to the upstairs, turn off all your lights, stay down. Like, I called the police, but we saw a guy get shot in the parking lot where we were at. And wow, it was I was like, so this is Mid-Atlantic Hockey League. So
this is what it's like.
Yeah. But wow. So that was probably the wildest one for that. But following the Mid-Atlantic, the Mid-Atlantic ended up kind of reinventing itself into what was called the Eastern Professional Hockey League. Yeah. And these 2 leagues are what has become the Federal Hockey League. Yep. So I was kind of a part of the very beginning of all that. So I ended up signing on with the Jersey Rockhoppers in the EPHL. And, there's a lot of guys who had played for me in Indiana, Pennsylvania, that came with me to Jersey. And, we kind of get this thing put back together there. It seemed like it was a little bit more stable. There was actually a couple paychecks that were had. And, but for me, they, as part of my contract, I was supposed to have some housing. Well, the owners just felt like it was going to take care of itself at some point, and it never did. And I ended up living in our team locker room until after New Year's, of which the rink finally figured it out and threw all of my shit in the dumpster after a road game. So I called our owner, and I'm like, so what are we going to do? And he put me in his mother's house, had an apartment in the upstairs, and one of our ticket sales guys was living there. He had a room, I had a room. That was it. So wow. That was, it's kind of a for love of the game kind of thing.
Kind of a happy to have you coach moment.
Yeah. So
you really got off to a rough start as coaching.
Yeah, it was, you kind of had
the dues.
Yeah, you had to earn your stripes to kind of get to where you wanted to go. So
I can't imagine being that rough.
It was tough, but, I tried, there's a lot of people, a lot of players that were depending on me. And, I was fortunate to have a pretty awesome family and my parents supporting me to kind of chase this dream and, try and make something of this coaching journey. And, that year in Jersey was pretty special. Like we, it was kind of a dogfight. We had the Danbury team, this team in Brooklyn that was kind of running away with everything. And, Brooklyn had a really good following. Danbury had a really good following. Jersey did not. And right when we came down to kind of the stretch run, the owner, there was a group of owners that owned Danbury and Brooklyn, and one of our owners owned Danbury and us. So it was like all interconnected. Well, they decided that they were not going to pay us when we and my players when we had a stretch of 3 games and 3 nights all against Danbury and Brooklyn. And that was with like 6 games left in the season. And if we didn't, win those games, or if we won those games, it was going to put us in a position to make the playoffs, which was just going to be a series against 1 versus 2. And I ended up having players sit out. They decided like, hey, they're not going to pay us because some of those guys played with me the year before. They chose to sit out, which I can't blame them. We went through hell the year before in Indiana. Everything was supposed to be on the up and up with the Jersey team, and the paycheck, we had one late period before, and then they just said that they weren't going to pay us until we had another home game. And so we ended up going and playing with like 11 skaters and one goalie. I picked up some 40-year-old guy. His name is Charles Simard, and he was actually a pretty legit D-man that a friend of mine recommended who lived in the Connecticut area. So ended up giving us 12 skaters, a goalie, dressed some random guy from Danbury and as a backup, and we ended up sweeping the weekend. And when we did that, we knocked Danbury out of any sort of playoff contention, so kind of sealed our ticket to go to the playoffs. So
now this Danbury team, it wasn't the same owners of the Trashers, was it?
No, it wasn't. It was after that
crazy shit.
Yeah,
happened.
No, not the Trashers.
Okay.
So, but
there was some stuff there. I know that.
Yeah, no, didn't have to deal with the mafiosos, but. Yeah. Those first 2 leagues were very interesting because, it wasn't like a Coliseum, Fort Wayne Coliseum. Yeah. It was more like what you saw with maybe Canlan or, a McMillan type of rink at some of these places. And, the team in Brooklyn, their setup was pretty decent. I think it was like a 1,500 seat thing, but the way it was set up, and you kind of have to see it, but where the benches were right above our benches where this little party deck that people would lean over, yell at you, dump beer on you and stuff. And but in order to go from one side of the stands to the other, there was a walkway that took you from the stands and walked right behind our benches all the way to the other side. No big deal. Well, we were playing in Brooklyn, and I'm coming off the bench, and I had this tough guy on my team, and his name is Jason McCrimmon. And he is one of the greatest human beings I'd ever met. He is one of the toughest human beings I had ever met as well. He's a 6'5" black guy, and he was one of the baddest dudes in that league. Well, we're coming off the ice at the end of a game, and fans are supposed to be held back from that area where we come off. Well, I led the team off, and next thing I know, I hear some yelling. I turn around, and there's this guy, and he is just dropping the N-bomb on Jason, and McCrimmon's like, okay, just kind of inching closer, and I knew he was just about to drop this guy, and I jumped in there, and I pulled Jason out, and I got in the guy's face, and I'm yelling at him, and I'm yelling for security, and I tell him, get the F out of here, and blah, 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 and talked to the rink, and I said, this guy, he said this, and so they say, okay, don't worry, we'll make sure he never comes back. Well, fast forward 2 weeks, we're back in Brooklyn, and we're a pretty heated game and all this other stuff. Game ends, we're coming off the ice, and one of the players from Brooklyn's team dumps a pitcher of beer on my players as we walk off.
One of the players?
From up above us on the party deck. So
Classy.
All my guys are going absolutely bananas, looking up, and I'm last off the bench trying to get everybody out, like, get out of here, guys, get off the ice. And I look up, and I'm yelling at the guy, and I'm right at the edge where the door comes off, and or right where I get off the ice onto this walkway, and I'm looking up. Next thing you know, this guy just appears right in front of me, and it was the guy who was getting on Jason, and he grabs me by my suit coat and he says, "What the are you gonna do now, coach?" And I just snapped, and I grabbed him and I just ran him back right into a wall, dropped him down, and it just started this huge pile on this guy. And I am kind of throwing a few punches on him, and I got him on his back. He's holding my tie. I end up ripping the sleeve off of his leather jacket.
Wow.
And guys pull me off, and this is the worst mistake this guy ever made. And all my players just piled in there and they're just gave it to this guy.
Dummying this guy like
he
crazy.
Gets up, he's bleeding, he's like looks like he's been put through the ringer. I mean, I even had my volunteer equipment manager, Dave Cavalier, jabbed him in the face with a stick. I mean, it was bananas. So, but in that situation, when a fan enters into the player's area and he put hands on me, and like I had to defend myself, and so security comes down, the police are there, and I'm like, I want to press charges. I want this guy, put in jail. Like, he's not supposed to be there. He grabbed me, and they had video of it and everything. And, my players maybe were a little excessive, but so they're like, well, the guy's not talking, but we'll get him to talk. So, we're waiting there. Players are getting undressed, and, it was about 5 minutes later, the cops come back in. I'm like, yeah, did you guys get him to talk? They put handcuffs on me. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And apparently this was an off-duty police officer that I just beat the shit out of. I am going, holy smokes. And my parents had actually flown up to watch this, so my dad's there. And but the saving grace of it all, our volunteer equipment manager, Dave Cavalier, was a New Jersey police officer. And he flips his badge open and just basically saved my ass and just said, hey, gentlemen, I was here. I saw this whole thing. He omitted the fact that he was a part of it, but he said, I'm telling you right now, this guy was the aggressor. They go, we don't care. He's he's one of ours, and they're both going. And so he talked to them for a bit, and they came back and said, okay, listen, if you want to kind of pursue this, you're both going to the lockup. If you're willing to let it drop, that's it. You guys can walk away. So I'm said, done. Took cuffs off, hopped on the bus, beelined out of there. And so my man Dave Cavalier saved my life on that one from that, but ended up dodging a pretty good bullet there. And when we played the playoffs, we ended up having to play the entire series in Brooklyn. And it turned out that guy, this off-duty police officer, was the uncle of one of the players on the Brooklyn team, and ends up showing back up, and he's pacing behind our benches, all this other stuff. And so it was pretty sweet when we ended up winning the championship right on their ice and all that stuff. So it was pretty good time.
Did you give him a little gesture afterwards? Did you?
I wasn't even thinking of him after that one. It was a pretty wild year. But I do remember all the barrels of beer and champagne and stuff. They got wheeled into our locker room. Very classy by the Brooklyn ownership. They took it from Brooklyn's locker room to ours, and we had quite the party in the at the Aviator rink there.
Oh, I've been to that rink before.
Yeah, so it was pretty cool experience there. But besides beating up a guy, an off-duty police officer, I ended up driving the bus from Danbury, Connecticut down to New Jersey because our bus driver got drunk watching our game in Danbury one time, and after the game I came out, he's passed out at the front. We had lost, and I'm like, you know what? I'm like, everybody get on the bus. It's time to go. And I drove this thing all the way back to Jersey. Now, it wasn't the huge bus that you saw. The owners thought it was a good idea to buy us a short bus, so it was like a little 15-row bus, and but
still a bus.
It's still a bus. Drove the bus. So it was that was an interesting one.
So
navigating.
you had to go through New York City and all that, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah, no way.
Wow.
Yeah, at 2 a.m. So it was
better than in the middle of the
much
day.
better. I was like, you know what? I'm like, this is the best possible timing that this could have happened.
Absolutely.
So yeah, but that was kind of my early first 2 years, and kind of kind of got thrown to the wolves, and
you still wanted to coach after that.
Yeah. Well, actually, after that, the EPHL, we won the championship, and they decided they were going to put everything on pause, and they for the league. And so I went back, and I decided that if I was going to go continue on coaching, I was only going to try and look for things that were going to take me up a step from where I was at. I felt like I accomplished what I needed to at this kind of single A level, startup single A level, I guess. And I ended up going back to Penn State, and I worked as the goalie coach and assistant coach there for their team. And, it gave me an opportunity to kind of do things a little bit different, not be the head coach, and work in the college side, and was just kind of figuring out what my next step was. And, after that 1 year, just kind of out of the blue, I get a call from the former commissioner of those first two leagues. His name was Jim Riggs, and he had been a tremendous help for me early in my career, and somebody who really advocated for me. I ended up getting an interview with the Dayton Gems, and they had hired Stan Drulia, and Stan took the job. 2 weeks later, left the job, went to go coach Wheeling. So they needed to find somebody, and they're at the end of June, and they had just come off of the worst season in pro hockey with John Marks, and they had a really tough year.
Yep.
So I got the opportunity to go into Dayton, and in the very retro classic Hera Arena. And
We'll call that.
Yeah, that was an adventure in and of itself.
That's about to get rebuilt now.
Yeah.
I don't know why that thing. I thought that thing was burnt down a long time ago.
It turned into an insurance claim now.
Well,
Tornado hits it, you get all that.
I figured they would have just pocketed the money and walked away.
But it was set for demolition, I heard.
Yes.
And then a tornado hits it. Now they're gonna talk about rebuilding the damn thing, and it's like, oh, why?
Yeah. It wasn't in the best part of town, but no. I mean, I will say this, like the fans that we had in Dayton, like I got a chance to play for the Bombers when they were at Wright State University building. It's a beautiful facility, the Nutter Center.
Yeah.
And then coming back with, to coach the Gems and being at Hera Arena, I'm like, man, this place looks so familiar. Like, what is it? And then my parents pulled out a picture of me winning Silver Sticks as an 8-year-old at Hera Arena. And I'm like, this is crazy. And, so to be back there coaching, and it's this old building, but the one thing I'll say is that there was like this super strong local ownership that really cared, and they made sure that it was done professionally. We had Dr. Paul Nitz, who's an orthopedic surgeon. We had Kathy Rupp, who was maybe one of the most incredible women that I had met. Her husband had been a Dayton legend, and she really made sure that everything was done professionally, and she made sure that everybody was taken care of. And we had Rob Garfield, who was he was the guy who interviewed me first and then really advocated for me. And he's an incredible man, and he has a huge bus company, Dreamcatcher Coaches, and I think he does a lot of the ECHL teams in the area, and he's got the best buses going, let me tell you. So a little plug there for Rob. But it was a really, really great opportunity to go to Dayton. And I know when I first got there, there was a lot of people didn't really know if I was going to be ready for the AA level, and what I was bringing. There was players that people hadn't necessarily heard of, things like that. And I remember, getting a call from Al Sims, and him saying, ahead of our exhibition games, like, hey, Gratzy, let's just pay attention to some of these players. And he named off some guys. These are the guys we're going to cut that we think could probably help your team out, just so that you can be competitive. And, because we really need Dayton to be in the league, and we want them to be able to stay, and we need you to have a team that can compete. I'm like, all right. And for me, I I was pissed. I took that as a slap
Kind of
in
a
the
slap,
face.
yep.
And listen, I know Al, and Al is a unbelievable guy, and he has been a tremendous mentor to me, and helping me throughout my early coaching days. So obviously, I led my boys into exhibition. I remember we played up here in Fort Wayne. I think we lost 2-1 in our first exhibition game. And, then Fort Wayne came down to play us, and we won 7-0 against them. And so I was pretty happy about that. Not going to lie, especially, it's my hometown. I had some money on the board. You definitely got to get one win there. But we ended up winning, I think, our first 6 games against the Comets that year. And it was all due in part to Jeff Jakitis, who was our goaltender, who was just an absolute stud. And that guy was like, he just got better the more games he played. And just, I remember the way the schedule was laid out at one point right after Christmas. We played 6 games in 7 days, which is completely
That's bogus, man.
against the rules. And the league said, well, no, it's not. You have 2-3 games in 4 nights. I'm like, how do you figure? We play the 26th, 27th, 28th. 30th, 31st, and 1st. I go 6 games in 7 nights. And they're like, well, no, you're off on the 25th. Then you play 3 games and you're off on this day. And you play 3. I'm like, so Jeff Jakitis played 5 of the first 5 games of that stretch.
Cow.
And he came into my office when I chose not to play him on that 6th game and just lost his mind. He's just like, I'm in a groove. This is me. This is my team, blah blah blah. And I'm like, Jeff, I need you for the whole season, man.
Gonna die.
And I mean, that type of competitor he was. I mean, I still have a good relationship with him, and but I loved it. You want to see a guy who wants and that's not going to give it up. Yep. So it was an awesome experience doing coaching him and being in Dayton that first year. And we had one of the biggest turnarounds from the previous year to that year. We made the playoffs. Jeff Jakitis got called up literally 2 weeks before playoffs, and they kept him up there during our first round. So we had a little bit of an early exit there against Rapid City, but it was a great experience. And the following year we kind of got hit with some injury bugs, but we kind of it was the last year for Dayton's pro team there. And it was, it was tough. I know our owners, no matter what, the stadium's falling apart around us. The fans weren't coming out like at one point. So this was right around the time of and you'll understand. You remember the DC sniper, the guy shooting from there. Well, there's copycats all over the country, right? Well, there was somebody who thought it was an awesome idea to do it in Dayton, Ohio, and they thought it was an even better idea to do it less than a block away from Harrow Arena on the day of a game. So this guy's sitting in a field just firing guns at cars as they drove by. Luckily, I don't believe anybody got hurt. Both teams had already been at the rink for morning skate and stuff, and we were like, man, nobody's going to come to this game. Like, the police were out there searching and all this other stuff for this guy. And the league was like, no, listen, both teams are there. You got to play the game. Well, we played the game in front of office staff. And, it just kills your team. And, shitty circumstance with that. And then I remember one time we're playing against the Allen Americans who would come in and they were a great team.
Was that a Marty coach team?
It was a Marty coach team. And we played a pretty awesome game against them. And, there's a pretty good crowd. And then all of a sudden, I remember it's like the middle of the second period and the stands just start emptying out. I'm like, what is going on? It's a 1-1 game. We've had 3 fights like this. I'm like, what's going on? And, at the old Harrow Arena, both teams could only come out or go on the ice at the Zamboni entrance. And we got held from leaving the ice after the second period. And I'm walking over there and both teams are standing there like, what's going on here? And one of the staff says, hey, listen, we're just trying to get the concourse squared away before you guys walk through here. I'm like, what? And my team president comes down. He says, a sewer line broke in one of the bathrooms, and there was literally a river of shit rolling through the concourse. And I'm like, you can't make this thing up. Like, I felt terrible for our owners who had put their blood, sweat, and tears in this. Our front office staff had one of maybe the best president, general managers that I had ever worked for, and Joe Green, who was a young guy who was passionate.
I remember Joe,
and he is absolutely maybe one of the best hockey executives I've ever seen and worked with. And this guy just, I mean, like, it didn't matter what he did. Like, he put together, promos for, every single home game. Like, I mean, we were pushing the needle for every single game that we ever had, and just selling the place out in Hera, but it just wasn't making a difference in terms of, I mean, our owners, I think they lost close to $1 million each year that they had the team. And it's, I felt bad for them. I couldn't deliver on a championship for them, but, it was just a tremendous, a tremendous 2 years there with them, and just seeing kind of what, being rewarded with the having a good ownership after not having it for such a long time.
Yep.
But after that happened, actually, I had to have like a huge knee surgery right at the end of the year, because the day before our season opened, my second year in Dayton, I got absolutely taken out in practice. A guy made a bad pass. We were working on control breakouts versus pressure, and this defenseman just, has a brain fart. He has a brain fart, throws a pass behind a guy, and I'm standing right at the near hash marks. So the play's supposed to go all the way down. So the guy throws a shitty pass, and the guy turns around, and I'm just kind of drifting to like kill it. And this guy just kind of blows an edge. He kind of got shoved by somebody pressuring him. It goes right into my leg. I tore my ACL, MCL, LCL, like shredded my meniscus. And like, I got taken out. I go to try and get up, and like my leg had nothing in there. It was like wobbling around. And I just like, oh God. So the guys kind of helped me up, get me off the ice. My trainer looks at it. He's like, there is nothing left in your knee. I'm like, well, let's put a brace on it. Like, the bus leaves in 3 hours to go to Bloomington. So took the bus, and we opened up the season, and like, I couldn't go on the ice for practice until the end of December. It was the first time I was able to get back on the ice, and I had to do it in a hip to ankle knee brace, hinged knee brace. Mm-hmm. And I mean, there's probably not a lot of people remember it, but I was on crutches on the bench for the first 6 weeks, and then I had to walk with a cane for another 4 to 5 weeks. And then once the season kind of concluded, I got the knee fixed, and Dr. Nitz did a tremendous job, and I've never had another issue with my left knee. It's my right knee that keeps falling apart. But
we need to go back to Dr. Nitz.
Yeah, well, I actually I finally got it taken care of by the guy who taught Dr. Nitz. So Dr. Shelbourne in Indy was the one who finally said, all right, let's get this thing sorted out. But that kind of concluded a very tumultuous season on the ice in Dayton. But, just the love and support within that organization from our owners were fantastic.
So you went from Dayton to Greenville, right?
Nope. I took a quick stop over in Bloomington.
That's right. I did see
that. I went. I got an opportunity to coach Bloomington, the Bloomington Blaze at the time, and it's tough. We had an owner that had taken over the year before. She had bought the team for her son to run, and he was like 26 years old. He was an absolute idiot. But they had hired this guy, David Holt, who's a good friend of mine. And he was the team president to kind of oversee this kid, Billy. And Billy just like put some stuff out on social media that you can't do.
Right.
And so David sent him home and told the mom. She totally agreed. But as soon as her little boy was not having anything to do with this team, she didn't have anything to do with it.
Of course.
And, that was actually the most recent lockout we had in the NHL was that year.
12?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the 12,
So
13.
we, yeah. And, right out of the gate, we had a friggin' awesome team, and we were clicking away. And once that lockout ended, it coincided with the time our ownership decided to piss off, and she stopped paying the bills. So the league had to step in and pay the salaries of the players. The front office staff and myself, we didn't get paid from Christmas through the end of the season. And, we kind of tried to, I stuck it out for my players, and the front office was working their ass off. Holtzy was awesome. And, it's also, we kind of going through this, and we lose a lot of players because they weren't getting paid, late paychecks, I should say. And it just was, it was like, man, is this really happening again? Like we're going through this bullshit again. And, I ended up staying as the team morphed into a Southern Pro team, which I said I was going to stay and help them kind of get off the ground as a Southern Pro team, and it wasn't something that I was necessarily looking to stay with. And we get into it, and it was WWF on Ice is what the new group wanted. They wanted fights. They wanted, they were coming in the locker room in between games, asking, saying, if you guys don't fight, you're gone. Like the next guy who gets in a fight, you get $100, and standing at the end of the bench, telling guys to get after it. And I'm like, what is going on here?
Sounds like some slapshot shit.
And it really was. And, for me, it kind of, listen, I like the rough and tumble stuff as much as anybody, but at the same time, you got to score goals to win hockey games. And I was more somebody, I liked, a high-paced type brand of hockey, high scoring. I wanted to have a potent power play. And, I recruited speed and skill with some, you got to have a little bit of jam out there too. But, they wanted tough. And, it kind of culminated in some, these line brawls that were going on the ice. A player shoots a puck into the other team's bench, and they wanted to blame me for it. And I just, I just said, guys, listen, to the owners, we parted ways. And I said, I was going to just stay to kind of get things started, and it kind of moved into the season. I said, I think it's best if everybody kind of we go our separate ways.
Yep.
So we did that. And, for the rest of that year, and geez, I can't remember. That was 2013, 14, I think.
Yeah, 13, 14.
I was actually helping Gary a little bit. So as he got into his playoffs and watching video and just kind of give him my 2 cents and come to a few games and things like that. And, wasn't really sure what the next step was going to be. And, I was kind of still looking. I was without a job, and for all the way through September, I'm like, well, I guess it's time for a real one. And that's when I got a call from Dean Stork in Greenville he had just lost his assistant coach, and asked me to come down because I played for him when he was an assistant in Cincy. We had a really good relationship when I was in Dayton, and we both were affiliated with New York at the time. So it really worked out, and I got to go there and experience what it's like to live in a sauna 24/7 in South Carolina. But it is Greenville is a special place in my heart, and my youngest daughter was born there, and it's amazing. So loved it, and year one was I got paid $5,000 in housing to be the assistant coach for that first year in Greenville.
Big money there.
So, again, it kind of goes back to having some awesome support system, and my parents understanding the dream that I'm trying to chase. And, it was tough. It definitely was tough. And, obviously I work hard in the off season, doing camps and, all this other stuff. And, but to kind of get through a season like that, and, getting 3 hours of sleep a night, doing tons of video, just kind of, it was a tough one. And, it was an interesting year too, is we had a pretty good team. We were underperforming, and at one point they were the GM. His name was Chris Lewis, and he was a team president, GM, and he was awesome. He was a fantastic leader for our organization. He was at a point where he thought maybe the team needed a shakeup, and what happens when a team needs a shakeup? They want to fire the coach, right?
Oh,
and,
yeah.
He approached me, and I think it was end of January. It was right after All-Star break, and he said, "Hey, I think we're going to make a change. Would you be willing to take over until we make a decision on a coach?" And at the time, we were like 3 points out of a playoff position. And Stork, he was a guy that I respect so much, and I mean he's an unbelievable coach, like great motivator, great recruiter. Like I told Chris, I said, listen, like Dean's the guy who brought me in here. Dean's the guy that I think is the one who's going to get us out of this little funk that we're in. I said, he goes, I go. And, from there, not really knowing what the ramifications were going to be for that. I was fortunate that, he stuck with Dean and stuck with the two of us. And, we ended up coming up a little bit short on playoffs. It was one of those stupid ECHL formats where
Yep.
It was a division thing where we ended up having more points than 2 or 3 other teams that made it in, but they were it was stupid. So Dean ended up, it really screwed him over, and he had a playoff caliber team, and we turned it around in the last month. And so it really sucked, but they ended up not renewing his contract, and it was a really tough thing when you see a friend and somebody that you really look up to lose his job like that. And I kind of take a lot of stock out of his book and the way he conducted himself and how he handled that situation. And he told me to get my resume in and just push to get that job. He brought me in there in the first place to be someone who could take over for him eventually. And I ended up going through a 2.5 month interview process with them. And Chris Lewis, as a great leader, he was very diligent and crossed the T's, dot the I's, all that stuff, and didn't leave any stone unturned. And I started my first interview mid-April. I had 2 more interviews with him and our owner, and then culminating in interviews with the New York Rangers and the Hartford Wolfpack staff, and because they were going to have some input on who was going to be that coach. So I'm like, man, I ain't getting this. I ain't getting this job. Like, this has been dragging on forever, and I'm already starting still as the acting assistant coach. I was promised if I didn't get the head job, he would try and keep me on. And I was like, I'm starting the recruiting process. And then I walk into his office. He wanted to talk to me, and man, he had the best poker face going. He's like, "Hey, Brian, you know what? We've been going through this," and just, you feel the air suck out of the room. And
Yep.
he just says, "You're our next head coach." And I was just like, I know he started talking about what the contract was. I didn't hear a friggin' thing he said. And I said, he's like, "So what do you think?" And very wisely, I said, I need to talk to my wife first. So I said, but I think it'll be okay. And so I went home and talked to her, and it was a really good celebration, and it was a good time. But then it was, now we were in the ECHL. It's a step up from the Central League. It is more. Now it's falling on me. I'm going to have more interaction with NHL affiliations and get to do a lot of different things with the Rangers. And so we got to get after it. So
Nice.
It was a pretty neat experience there in Greenville. Got to work with Jim Schoenfeld, who was the assistant GM for the Rangers and the GM for Hartford. And that guy is the class of hockey, in my opinion. He was a tremendous mentor. He was a guy that kind of helped keep me in line in terms of, where, how to handle player situations, having these entry-level contract guys who are making, $250,000 playing in the coast, wondering why they're not playing in the NHL, how to handle them and things like that. So taught me a lot, and I got to go to the Traverse City rookie tournament and Rangers camp, Hartford camp, all that stuff. And so it was really cool to get to do a few things and go to the draft. And I'm meeting Glenn Sather, and it was funny, like right before my second year, I go to the draft, and we had an issue with our athletic trainer, and we were trying to transition to a new one. And I'm in the New York Rangers suite for the during the draft, and it's a draft where they had no picks in the first three rounds because they were selling the farm for a big push.
Yep.
And I'm up there and talking with Shoney, and Glenn Sather walks by, big stogie in his mouth, and he's not even looking at me, and he just stops, turns, and he's like, "Gratzy, you get this trainer business figured out yet?" I'm like, "We're working on it, sir." He's like, "Well, you better, or else I'm moving all my fucking players out of there." And I said, "No problem, sir." And he just popped it back in and kept walking. And I look at Shoney, and he's just laughing. And I'm like, I'm like, he means business. He's like, "We know you got it handled, Gratz. You don't worry about it." I'm like, "No, but that was a really good first conversation with Glenn. I appreciate that." So it was really cool to get to meet some of those guys.
Yeah. So after Greenville, you come back home, you take over Canland out there for a year, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, kind of, my last year in Greenville, kind of how everything was playing, right? So, my second year in Greenville, we ended up having a 40-win season, set franchise records all over the place. It was great. And then going to my third and final year of my contract, and we're flying high. And we set a record for the franchise, which actually the franchise started as the Johnstown Chiefs. That actually got moved there. So it was my first pro experience playing, and I'm there coaching. So it's kind of like a big circle. And, we set the franchise record for most consecutive wins for us. And, I think we were second place in the league, like right at Christmas time. And right before Christmas, I'm told that we're going to have an ownership change. And, being in Greenville, we had an incredible owner. It was Fred Festa was amazing. But he wanted to move into something different, and he has a vision and a project that he's working on that I won't talk about, but it's like he's somebody that if he wants to make it happen, he will. He is the man. So they sold it to a group that was going to be more regional, more local. And, Steve Donner was a tremendous guy, and I came in and was ready to put his nose to the grindstone. But fact of the matter is, when you buy a team halfway through the season, all that ticket money is spent. All the sponsorship money has already been spent. All that stuff that the previous ownership's taken with them. So they had nothing. And, so we had to run it kind of lean, and Steve was trying to make the best of every situation and all that, and trying hard to give us as much resources as we can. But I mean, we didn't have a homestand for a while, and but we got hit with some injuries, and we got hit with some departures to Europe, and we went from a second place team with just some elite level players to a team of 15 Southern Pro players. At one point, I had 8 of my players on the IR, and I'm not talking $500 a week players. I'm not talking, second year $600 a week players. I'm talking $800-900 to $1,000 a week players on my IR. And
just short of veteran status.
Yes, veterans. Like I had Joe Hauk, who was one of the best defensemen in the league, on IR, season-ending IR, basically from All-Star break on. I had my captain, Breton Cameron, who was a heart and soul of our team. He was at a point a game on the year, career-ending concussion. Brandon Troop, goal a game guy. Like he was unbelievable. Broke his foot. He was out for, it ended up being almost 10 weeks. We had Brendan Kotick. He was a D-man playing for Toledo this past year. It was an anchor for us. He broke his foot. He was out. We ended up having 4 defensemen and 4 forwards, and they weren't our bottom 4. They were top 4 of everything. So you lose all of your power, and we just never got them back.
Yeah.
And to top it off, the new ownership group really had this idea of pushing for a regional affiliation, which they have since gotten. That Greenville is going to be affiliated with Carolina Hurricanes, which is awesome. Like, I think that's going to be great for that area of the country, especially the way the Hurricanes kind of came on last year.
Are you going to call them the Baby Jerks?
I don't know, but I know whatever they choose to do and how they're going to use that affiliation, Greenville will respond to it, because Greenville is absolutely amazing, and they have some of the best fans I've ever met, and awesome people, and they have a really good ownership group there. But I know that they chose not to. They told the Rangers they weren't going to renew with them. They told them that at the end of January, and the Rangers felt like, well, fine, we're not going to help you the rest of the year. Yeah. So you got these injuries, you lose any support you ever had with your affiliation. So now you're playing in at the time, one of the stronger divisions in the ECHL with a Southern Pro team. Yeah. And we just couldn't compete. And then I was tasked with just build for next year. And now you're bringing in college kids, and we brought in a lot of good players, but we get to the end, and there was a decision that they didn't want to bring me back, and you know what? I mean, they need a fresh start.
Right.
They wanted to have their own spin on it, and I think Kersey is an awesome coach, and he's a great guy, and he's going to do some awesome things there in Greenville. But when I get into some of this reflection about what happened after Greenville, getting I ended up having my knee operated on again, and it was
See, and then a pattern there.
Yeah, and then I had to have what was done there fixed this past May, but now it's good. So, but you're looking at all that and just kind of the rat race of it, and I just felt like it was the time to come back to Fort Wayne. It was the time to be able to maybe take a deep breath and look at where can I put my greatest impact into hockey. And when the opportunity arose, and it was funny, I was actually offered to go be one of the coaches at Trine, and that opportunity got pulled out from under me after I had booked a plane ticket to come up and sign my agreement in September, because the previous coach decided he wanted to come back. And it was for one of the club teams, but I was also going to work with the NCAA team. So that opportunity gets pulled out. Gary talks to DJ Fisher, who is one of the heart and soul guys at the rink here in town, running the adult leagues and stuff, and basically doing everything humanly possible in that building. Connects me with him, and DJ just kind of says, hey, maybe we should talk to this guy. And they were already in there, almost done with their interview process. So I get a chance to come up and meet Peg Campana, who's the GM here, and has turned into being one of my close friends, and probably one of the greatest people I've ever worked for in my life. Just to kind of, I end up getting this opportunity to come and be the youth hockey director, and to work with a company like Canlan that's huge, it's publicly traded, and knowing that there's going to be a paycheck every 2 weeks. There's going to be support. It's done professionally. This wasn't a 1-year job. This was a career job for me, and there was opportunity for me to eventually work up into being the building general manager. And I was working with Peg and Canlan at transitioning to that within a couple of years. Right. So it was something that I loved it, and I loved working with the kids, and you hop on the ice, and the difference you see in these kids from practice 1 to even practice 2 a week later is staggering. Whereas at the pro level, that much difference you've never seen. You only see degrees of difference, 1% change in a guy, which makes a difference between ECHL to AHL, so on and so forth. So I really loved it, really embraced it. And, in June, we found out that Canlan was selling the rink. So it was very bittersweet. And from there, I didn't know if I was going to be retained, and I had to re-interview for my job. And, we found out it was going to be a local ownership group. And to be honest with you, I think this new group coming in is going to do an awesome job with Fort Wayne. And I mean, they're Fort Wayne people, and they know what this needs. And, we don't have these corporate overlords from Canada looking over us, but it's going to be great for the community. But, before everything took shape, it was intimated to me that there was a good chance that there wasn't going to be room for me. So I had to kind of open up the door to what some possibilities might look like. And I did some interviews, interviewed with some ECHL teams that were open, went pretty far with one, but also Gary talked to me. He said, I have this opportunity. And I said, yeah, that sounds wild. And
so how did that whole thing go? Did he just give you a shout one day and say, hey,
well,
how do you feel about Beijing, China?
So he had told me that he was talking to them, talking to Brian McKenna, who was the former ECHL commissioner, and was now the GM of this ORG Beijieng team. And he said, I'm like, man, the VHL, like I've had players play in the VHL. They were in Russia and it was a shit show. Like these guys were, when it was payday, they're taping money to their body to go out and practice because, they get paid in cash. They go out and practice. They come back, their cash was gone. And like, there's some horror stories over there. And my man, I don't know about this. But hearing Brian McKenna was involved, the Boston Bruins had recommended him to be the person consulting with them. And then the owner of the ORG team is one of the largest sponsors for the Bruins. So there ended up being that, the Bruins are helping and consulting with this team. So hearing that, talking with Brian McKenna and understanding that this is, the owner of the team has this passion for, developing Chinese players and wanting to help prepare China for the Olympics that are happening in Beijing in 2022.
Yeah.
And, I heard it from Gary and I said, well, I'm still, at the time when he told me he was starting the conversation, I was happy with where it was at and everything was all good. And probably a week after that, the news breaks about, this ownership change. So I talked to Gary and he's like, yeah, well, actually, we're going to need to find a coach, but he's like, just leave it with me. I'll let you know. And, Gary fought and clawed to get me on the radar. And in terms of convincing the owner that I was somebody that was going to bring value, not only from the X's and O's and coaching side, but the goalie coaching side, and also the organizational side, and really working to, Gary. Some of the tasks that Brian McKenna, myself, and Gary are really tabbed with is to really kind of get them. I don't want to say more organized, but how to run a real professional organization, and it's professional over there. It's just, and talking with some of the people over there, transportation wouldn't be consistent, in terms of when they're going to games. And, it's just, everything is always was in constant flux over there, from an organizational standpoint. So, I think, us coming in and having been in the ECHL, doing everything humanly possible because as a coach, you don't just coach, you recruit, you do all this paper, all this stuff. And, to be able to do that, and kind of help bring that expertise is what's really going to kind of help there. But to have a chance to, work with the national team players and maybe have a chance to be a part of an Olympics in some capacity, it was an unbelievable opportunity. And, when they, after talking with Brian McKenna, who I had a really good relationship with, and they offered me the opportunity, and, weighing that out versus, what the new group had come back with here in Fort Wayne about, trying to keep me on. And I'll be 100% honest with you, Kaylee Schrock fought and clawed to get me to stay and to get them to understand what I can bring to the table. And they came back with a good contract that was doable. But at the end of the day, just there are certain things that made this other opportunity better for me and my family. And it's a bittersweet decision, but it's one that, I don't look back with regret. And I know that I've made some incredible relationships here over the past year, and those will be relationships that will continue. And, Fort Wayne has been my home. I was born here. I was raised here. I have a house here. I'm going to be coming back here after the seasons. And, I look forward to continuing those relationships.
Sure.
So is your family going to be able to go with you?
Yeah.
There?
So that's the plan. They won't be there full time. Right now, we got hired in pretty late. Gary and I. The recruiting season for Europe for KHL, VHL is like February, March.
Right.
That's when these players usually sign your import sign and all this other stuff. So we're coming in, and Gary and Brian McKenna are really trying to get them, get the team filled out, and so we got a lot of stuff we gotta get figured out right away, and came in late. There's a visa process and getting everything booked to get both Gary and I over there, since we'll be traveling at different times. We're gonna get there. We'll get settled. I think they just finally put out a schedule because they just announced 2 new teams to our league within the last week. So full schedule hasn't even been brought out yet. So, once we have that and we can see it, my family will be over and, should be there for about half of the time this year.
Nice.
So,
well, there's a bunch of people on here wishing you good luck.
I appreciate it. I mean, I know Fort Wayne is it's my home, and it's a hockey town, and they've always supported their local boys, and you've always felt kind of that love and appreciation. When I was coaching against the Comets, and just kind of everybody knows each other here, and it's a special town.
That was the one question I was going to ask. The last thing here is, what was it like when you were with Greenville? You got to look across the ice and see Gary standing there, and you guys are like lifelong friends.
Man, it was awesome. We talked before, morning skates, things like that. And, I definitely wish we could have put up more of a fight. We were at the end of February and in the midst of this team just falling apart and having a Southern Pro team against a team that was going to go to the conference finals. And I'm just like, man, we're coming up against it, and had to get pretty creative on the ice. But, to get out there and in warm-ups, I'll go stand on the bench. I know Gary's over there, and we just kind of see each other, and it's just a smile, and just know that him and I have been through maybe one of the more unconventional paths to getting to that point. But one thing I know that him and I are very proud of, and is as we continue to make Fort Wayne the hockey hotbed of coaching prospects, and we know that both of us have worked our asses off to get to that point. So
yeah, you went through some shit. I'm going to say that.
Yeah, you only got half of it, so I'll save that for the next time you invite me to tell you about the Beijieng experience.
Yeah, we'll wait for that until after you get home next year.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the season runs through the end of February, and I think for me, I look at it, it's 7 to 8 months, and we go over there, and we're taking over a last place team. We're so far behind on the recruiting, but Gary and Brian McKenna are kicking ass, taking names, doing that. We're gonna have our work cut out for us, but
you'll be tired when you get home.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'll be able to come home. The good thing is I'll be able to come back, sometime in March, maybe late March at the latest, and have an opportunity to come back and work with our youth hockey players here, and we started to see the goalie union increasing here in Fort Wayne. A lot of good ones out there that are really coming along, and a lot of great young athletes that are finding that passion for the game. So I know that they're all in great hands under the new building's eye, and Kaylee's going to be involved with it along with his junior team responsibilities. So that man's got his hands full.
Yes, he does.
But if there's anybody that can do it, it's Kaylee. He's a rock star. So I'm excited to see the direction that's going to continue to go, and I really look forward to being able to come back in the off season and at least add something to the Fort Wayne hockey.
Peek in there every now and then.
Yep.
So we do have a quick question from Christine Musselman. When you're over in China, are you going to have translators, or do you know how that's all going to work?
You got your new classes, your schedule for Chinese.
Yeah, well, I have my Rosetta Stone fully loaded on my phone, so it is ready to rock. I'm through section 1 already. Don't ask me if I remember it. I got ni hao, I got che fan, eat food, he shui, drink water. I just got to figure out how to say, don't drink the water over there. Just drink bottled water. But I'm working my way through the Rosetta Stone. But as far as the setup goes, Gary and I, obviously, two Guaylos, round-eyed devil, is the name that my friend who's actually Chinese and actually coaches some over there said that we would be referred to as. There's us. We'll have a Russian, another assistant coach who's a Russian, and we'll have another assistant coach who is Chinese. So it's quite a sizable coaching staff, but those two guys will help us navigate our players and trying to explain what we're trying to say and help deliver our message with the proper inflection and color of the words that we're trying to say. But so it will be an interesting thing. But we're Beijieng is a city, and actually where they're going to be putting us is somewhere that their English is a little bit more prevalent than what you might think, and so it should be a little bit easier for us to deal to assimilate, I guess. And then I think once you kind of move out from where we're at, it's going to be a little bit more challenging, but hopefully I've figured out how to ask where the bathroom is by that time.
That's the most important one. Bathroom, food, and beer.
Yep.
Yes.
Sake, I guess, over there might be.
Oh, that's Japan, man. That's
Japan.
But
they still drink it over there.
Oh, I will let you know.
So next April when you're back and we have you.
Yep.
Whole thing's in Chinese, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we won't be here. But
we need to hook up with some Chinese people.
We'll just have a Google translator.
If I'm able to have a halfway coherent conversation over there, I don't even want to say conversation, but if I get to that point, I'll be very proud of myself. But I'll also realize that now I'll have to learn Russian too, because the way our team's kind of comprised is since it is a Russian league, like pretty much half the teams are Russian, half the team's Chinese, and then you have 4 North American imports you can have. So the roster size, one of the biggest challenges is going to be it's a much larger roster size than Gary and I are accustomed to. In the ECHL, you carry about anywhere from 20 to 24 if you're stashing guys on the IR and stuff like that. Over there, last year, I believe they carried almost 35 guys. And there was 4 goaltenders on the team last year, which is a lot, and that's a pretty aggressive number.
Double the goaltenders.
Yeah, and since I'm working with them, boy, it's going to make for some challenges.
Yeah, double the work for you.
Yeah, it's more of the lack of work that they will see in a regular practice. So getting creative on getting them going, and getting them out there 45 minutes early, staying 45 minutes late. These poor boys don't know what they're in for. So we're gonna beat the wheels off them, get them ready to rock.
All right, man. Well,
we wish you the best of luck.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I think we will do one more sponsor plug because we're running late. If you guys are interested, it's hot outside. We have sponsors of Deadeye Dick's Axe Throwing Arena.
That sounds like
is
a great time right now.
fun.
It's hot out.
They have, I think you can bring in beer right now. They're working on building a bar.
I'm not sure, but once they expand, they're working on the expansion. That's going to be a great place.
And if you bring in your significant other, make sure you're on good terms and you didn't make her mad.
That would be good. Also, Fort Wayne Chamber escape rooms. If you're into going to solve stuff like that, we're great friends with them. Tell them we sent you.
Yeah.
They're going to be doing some stuff for our party and sponsorship stuff. So
all these places that you go to that you hear from us, make sure you tell them that you heard it here. They love it. Yeah,
and those guys are fun. Take your buddies for a bachelor party. It's a good warm up for the night. Date night's always a good time too.
Depends
as
on how
long
the
as you
date's
work
going.
together. If you don't do well together working on stuff, or you're super competitive like I am, it's not a good idea. So, but yeah, go see those guys. Go see guys over at Rudy's. Also come out here and see us next time with a Hoppy Gnome, or just come out and eat their amazing food that they have, and their great beer. So tell them we sent you again. And other than that, though, we will be back tomorrow with Indiana Tech's head coach Frank Cristofaro.
Yeah.
He's the man. Let me tell you, he is awesome with what he's done with that team at Indiana Tech, and the sky is the limit with that university and what they want to put into it. Man, the position I have is pretty cool to be able to see like some of those little things, and Frank has been awesome. So you guys should definitely tune in for him.
Yeah, it'll be a fun one.
From what I understand, we may be getting some surprise guests with Frank tomorrow. So definitely something that you don't want to miss. So,
and if that's at Rudy's at 2:00 downtown, right next to Parkview Field. So come out and hang out with us. They got beer and cigars if you so entail. Also, recommendation: the Tin Caps are home tomorrow across the street. So there's an alleyway behind Rudy's with a parking lot designated for them. Just sneak back there and come on in through the fence in the back, and we'll be in there.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thanks again, Brian. We wish you the best of luck.
I appreciate it.
Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you hopefully soon.
We'll see after your season ends. We definitely want to get you back on.
Hey, that'd be awesome. I had a great time, gentlemen, and enjoy the season. Let's go Comets, and let's go ORG Beijieng. Let's do it.
All right, buddy.